Jess and I are also former co-chairs of the Seattle Youth Commission. And this is essentially an official city commission in which 15 youth were chosen from across the city to represent the voices and the experiences of the youth in our districts. So we're really excited to talk about our experience working with participatory budgeting on the level of Seattle and specifically focused on youth. So it was the second participatory budgeting program ever that was totally dedicated to youth after Boston. And we, Jess and I, were the two youth delegates on the steering committee. So it was 20 people total, but we were the young people that were kind of providing the youth perspective and how the program was developed.
So we helped plan the project like from its inception all the way to kind of going out there and actively taking part and trying to reel people in to actually have a voice.
It went through much the same process as any participatory budgeting program. First, we had community members brainstorm ideas for potential projects, and this was actually open to anyone of any age. They could submit ideas through an online form. We also had paper forms that we passed out and then collected.
So the way that we would do it was we would go to one of our classrooms and tell students about this way to be more engaged within the process of government within Seattle. Say that if you are between the ages of 11 and 25, you have a voice within this process. You are able to take the money that has been allocated to us and make it go towards projects that would mean a lot to your community.
And then we had a committee of 20 youth budget delegates, and these students were between the ages of 11 and 25. And they took all of these ideas, read through all of them, and turned them into 19 concrete project proposals with only the assistance of one or two adult leaders. And this was a big project because they had to kind of take a very disparate collection of ideas of what citizens wanted in their communities and then turn them into proposals that were within the budget that could actually be implemented.
Like in terms of participatory budgeting, you have to understand the participants, and you also have to understand the budget. So understanding the different parameters that are set in terms of youth, considering that we have really wild and crazy ideas, but also understanding what wild and crazy ideas can actually take us far, and what can we actually do with those ideas to kind of make a change and say, hey, we're youth, this is what we want from our government, and this is the participation that we seek from this sort of process.
From there was the vote, and we actually, Jess and I both worked on setting up voting booths in our schools and our communities, and we invited young people, ages 11, 25, to vote on which projects they most wanted to see in their communities. And this narrowed it down to 7 projects that were finally implemented. So the winning projects ended up being a pretty cool assortment of priorities, and we actually saw that one of the biggest issues that youth wanted to focus on is homelessness, especially, or houselessness, especially among the youth population. So there was one program that was implemented to involve youth in building 10 small mobile homes. There was also youth homeless shelter improvements project that went into improving the facilities of local shelters. There were job readiness workshops that we were able to fund, and also a program in schools that would enable staff to better reach out to homeless youth and connect them with the resources in the local community they might not otherwise have access to. There were also several projects throughout the community, including a Wi-Fi hotspot checkout, park bathroom upgrades that youth wanted to see, and they wanted to repaint the crosswalks. And in total, this came to $700,000. I believe there was a $250,000 limit on any one individual project.
So looking at the whole process of when it started to actually carrying it out, we looked at what worked. So these are the 3 things that really stood out for us: the budget delegates, the strong voter turnout, and civic engagement. It was really good for us to have budget delegates in order to understand the feasibility of the projects at hand. Like I said, with the wild ideas, there were some things that were really cool and stood out from the rest, but of course we kind of had to be grounded in our idea and approach of what can be actually approved and what can actually have an impact on the communities in Seattle. Also, the strong voter turnout, considering the fact that once you turn 18, you have to vote, but having participatory budgeting to be more involved with youth from ages 11 to 25 at the time, that was very important. That really gave like a stepping stone for those who were very, I guess you could say, politically active as youth, and what that meant for them to kind of have a platform and kind of engaging their ideas with different council members and different community organizers within the different neighborhoods, and also civic engagement. So it wasn't only focused primarily in the schools, but we reached out to community centers and different community organizations. So
there were several quotes after the process that we got from youth that I think really demonstrate the importance and the impact of a youth approach to participatory budgeting. One youth wrote, "It's an excellent opportunity for youth my age to really start making a difference in our city's community. I feel great to get the chance to vote and be involved in the community. It makes me feel like my vote matters. I wish these empowering social justice projects were more widely discussed within the Seattle City Council and in state policies." And to me, this quote really shows that youth are thinking already on the broader level. They're thinking about how these projects and these ideas that they have can be implemented not just on the level of the participatory budgeting program, but also in the broader city and the state, where most youth who participated in this process had never voted in an actual city election or federal election. And to be able to make real decisions about how the city uses its resources demonstrates to youth that they can be engaged now.
So kind of going into the lessons learned, we looked at the 4 things that stood out for us again, and where can we improve? Accessibility. Looking at the different communities that haven't been historically represented, like I mentioned earlier, people of color, people with disabilities, and people of different religious faiths, how are they being accurately represented and how are they being accurately heard? What does it mean to go out into the community and actually advocate for them rather than doing what you think is best? So understanding the 2 different modes of representation. There's a trustee model, and there's a delegate model. So with that trustee model, you are kind of doing what you think is best for the community. And with a delegate model, you are actually going to the community, getting feedback, hearing from the voices that aren't being historically listened to and heard. So feasibility, looking at the bigger picture. What does it mean to actually carry out a project that you think will be sustainable over time? And what does that mean for the future of children moving forward? Can it be done by youth in the next year, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? Understanding those types of parameters that are being set and how you can kind of push the boundaries but stay in the boundaries at the same time. There are times where youth are kind of put aside in terms of not being realistic with their approaches, but we have a lot of dreams, we have a lot of goals, and participatory budgeting is a way for us to have a platform and communicate that to the general public.
And so I hope what you take away from this presentation is that young people are the leaders of today. We're not just the leaders of tomorrow. And by engaging in a participatory budgeting project with youth, the cities are giving youth the opportunity to step up, to really participate, and become lifelong leaders in civic engagement.